All right, so it is now 9:05. We'll go ahead and get started with the Finance Subcommittee meeting. Actually, Councilor Hurst asked for this meeting to put the meeting together. So I will turn the floor over to Councilor Hurst, and we'll go from there.
Much appreciated, Madam Chair. Why don't we go around and just introduce ourselves? I know Sandra, you are on here. I don't know if anyone else from your team is on here, but it might be helpful just to get an idea as to who is in the room and what role they play.
Good morning,
Can we do that,
everyone.
Madam Chair?
Absolutely, yes. So I'm Tracy, Springfield City Councilor at Large, and I am the Finance Committee Chair, Subcommittee Chair. Paul?
I'm Paul Burns-Johnson, Director of Operations for PVTA.
Thank you, Paul. Sandra?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandra Sheehan. I'm the Administrator of the Pioneer Valley Transit Authority.
Thank you. Judy?
Good morning. My name is Judith Crowell, and I am part of the Mayor's Office of Diversity and Inclusion.
Thank you, Judith. Maria?
Yes, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Councilor Maria Perez, Ward 1.
Thank you, Councilors.
Justin Hurst, Springfield City Councilor at Large. So thank you, Madam Chair. Much appreciated for you hosting this meeting. This meeting really is in response to a resolution that was sponsored by myself, Councilor Whitfield, Councilor Walsh, Councilor Davila, and Councilor Govan. We sponsored the resolution at our meeting on April 4th of 2022, and we sent it to committee primarily because I thought it was important to hear from you, Sandra, as it relates to the proposal. We certainly know we can bring this information back to the TJs of the world and to the administration in the event that, you know, we think it makes sense. But the one person that I didn't think we heard from, or that the rest of the council, I don't think heard from, was members of the PVTA. Now, I know, Sandra, just in terms of compiling the data, and I appreciate your support. You and I have communicated a number of times, and you actually were extremely helpful in allowing me and the rest of our team to come up with this proposal based off of the numbers you gave. So if I could just, Madam Chair, just give a brief overview of the proposal, just so that anybody who is not aware of it has a good idea as to what it is that we are trying to do with this proposal. Then, you know, I think we can answer any questions after that and maybe hear from Sandra if that works for you, Madam Chair. So just quickly, our proposal is to make the B7, the G2, and the B6 PVTA bus lines free for the next 2 years as a pilot program with the ultimate goal of making public transportation in the city of Springfield free for all riders. The cost of this pilot, based off of the numbers that we've compiled in conjunction with the Pioneer Valley Transit Authority, was $1.7 million per year and $3.4 million over the course of 2 years. Now, I know initially there was a question as to whether, you know, how would we fund this program? And I know there also have been some questions from the Pioneer Valley Transit Authority that they don't want to lose funding, and they certainly don't want to be left on the hook footing the bill. And so, as we have seen in other municipalities throughout Massachusetts who have implemented these pilot programs, they've used ARPA funding. And I know that ARPA funding was a question early on, but clearly if other communities are doing it, like Salem, Somerville, Boston, Worcester, and Lawrence and Haverhill, then we certainly can do it on our end. And, you know, when you look at some of the other cities that have free transportation just as a whole and just thought it made sense. There are those cities out there too: Dayton, Ohio, Kansas City, Missouri, Minneapolis, Minnesota. So there is precedent for this and for free transportation just in general. And it seems to me that that's where we ought to be headed for a variety of different reasons that I'll get to a little later. But just first of all, the B7. The B7 bus line goes from Eastfield Mall to State Boston Road. Some of the counselors, I know Councilor Whitfield, you had an opportunity to take a ride on that particular line. That is the highest ridership in the city of Springfield, which is one of the reasons why we're asking for this particular bus line to be free. 100% of the people riding this bus board in Springfield, 100% of the people riding the bus get off in Springfield. And so 100% of the stops are in Springfield. And it just made sense that this would be something that a number of Springfield residents could benefit from. The rough cost, based off of the numbers that I've received from the PBTA, was roughly $823,000 a year. The second bus line that we were looking to do for free for the pilot of 2 years was the G2. Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt,
Yeah.
but 823,000, what cost was that? What was that?
So that was the rough cost of ridership for this bus line for the entire year.
That's fine, okay.
Based off of the number of stops that were pre-COVID stops. So this is not based off of COVID numbers. These are based off of 2019 numbers. And so these numbers are not, we obviously know that during COVID, the number of individuals riding the bus went down dramatically. And so these numbers are compiled based off of the city of Springfield ramping up its ridership to pre-COVID-19 numbers. And this bus line goes from the Eastfield Mall all the way to downtown. We also have the G2 bus line, which is the second bus line. This particular bus line is the third highest ridership in the city of Springfield. It goes from East Springfield to Carew to Belmont to Dwight Street. This particular bus line is boarded. This particular bus line, 96% of the people riding this bus board in Springfield, and 95% of the people riding this bus get off in Springfield. In addition, 90% of the stops are in Springfield. The rough cost of ridership for this particular route for the entire year was roughly $560,505.60. If you decide to only fund the Springfield stops, then the cost of ridership for the entire year goes down to $536,941.44. And so when you look at the number of stops in the East Long Meadow area, you're talking about, I believe it's roughly 2 stops in the East Long Meadow area. One is a nursing home and one is the Stop and Shop grocery store, as we know how important it is to make sure we have full service grocery stores accessible to our residents. And so when you look at the number of stops and the cost for those stops in the East Long Meadow area, we're talking about $23,564. So certainly can be some discussion as to whether it makes sense to fund that and what are the implications to the PBTA. I'm just merely presenting those numbers so that folks can digest them and we can have a discussion as to whether it makes sense to just fund Springfield or potentially to fund the entire route. And then finally, Madam Chair, the last bus line that we would look to fund is the B6 bus line. It is the 4th highest ridership in the city of Springfield. It goes through Indian Orchard to Bay Street and then ultimately to downtown. When you look at this bus route, 93% of the people riding the bus board in Springfield, 92% of the people riding the bus get off in Springfield, and 93% of the stops are in Springfield. The rough cost of ridership for the entire year is $337,299. The rough cost of ridership for the entire year for boards in Springfield only, of course, is going to go down to $313,104. And then the rough cost for ridership for the entire year, just for boards in Ludlow only, if we wanted to exclude that amount or include it, is $24,195. What I will highlight is very similar to those individuals who might be riding the bus to East Long Meadow and to the Stop and Shop there. These particular individuals, the likelihood is high that they are either going to the Ludlow Big Y, which is the final stop, or coming from the Ludlow Big Y, most likely back into Indian Orchard. And so, you know, we all know the benefits, and we've talked about them at length at our press conferences, those individuals that were here. But just to recap, you know, reliable public transit systems improve community livability and mobility. In addition, you know, the folks who these three bus lines will benefit residents in all 8 wards of the city, which is one of the reasons why we chose these 3 particular bus lines, so they would have an impact on every ward councilor. And in addition, they would allow individuals who have difficulty getting to things like full service grocery stores, high schools, colleges, testing sites, vaccination sites, more of an opportunity to actually take advantage of those institutions. And then when you think of taxes, utilities, groceries, rent, everything is going up. And so, you know, providing free transportation for the individuals that ride on these particular routes would go a long way. And we also know that transportation, especially for our low-income families, account for roughly 1/3 of, or 30% of their household income. And so, you know, we want to find a way to benefit our residents. We know that we only have $48 million, Councilor Whitfield, you know more than anybody, that has not been allocated of ARPA funding. We're not talking about a lot of money, and it just seems like this is one way that we can benefit the residents of Springfield now throughout the entire city. And so, you know, I've heard a lot of arguments as to why we shouldn't have free transportation. But to be honest with you, Madam Chair, none of those arguments have resonated, you know, from my perspective. And so I know Ms. Sheehan, I've seen a couple of quotes in Mass Live. I don't want to speculate as to whether those quotes are accurate, because I'm oftentimes quoted inaccurately. So my hope is that, you know, you can sort of give us your take on this and, you know, what it is that you all are thinking. And if this proposal doesn't make sense, you know, why not? Or how can we make it better? And what would you all support? I'm certainly happy to answer any questions in terms of the details of the proposal, Councilor Whitfield, or, you know, we can go right, you know, especially if councilors have it. I know Councilor Perez is on the line, but if not, then we can certainly go to answering questions from the PVTA.
Well, I definitely appreciate your effort, Councilor Hurst. And this is, I think, a great opportunity to really impact the residents in the city of Springfield and, you know, some other residents abroad that may need a little bit of assistance. I want to say that I support the resolution because it's a great opportunity. When we took the ride with some of the residents of the city of Springfield, there was a mother on that bus who had to buy a weekly pass for her 2 children and herself. And I just wanted to ask a question to Sandra or Paul. What are the costs of the weekly the weekly bus passes for children and for adults? Or are they?
I forgot, I thought I was unmuted. Unmuted. The regular fare is $1.50. Daily pass is $3.50. Weekly pass is $15.75, I want to say, and a monthly pass is $54.
A monthly pass is, I'm sorry?
$54.
54. And it doesn't matter on the age, so she has two, because she had two school age children.
So any child that's over 13 years old, it pays a regular fare. We do discounted fares when you go to the customer service center, so you'll get the fare for $1.40. Seniors 60 and over and individuals with disabilities pay half a fare, which is 75 cents. Children 6 to 12 pay 90 cents, and children 5 and under are for free. Our 7-day pass is $15, and our regular 31-day pass, which is a rolling pass, is $54. And the individuals that are seniors and mobility impaired only pay $26 for that pass.
What about children for the monthly pass?
We do not have passes for children, not
So
at this time.
Be like $54 a month per child. Okay.
If she's buying a pass for a child, yes.
Okay. So from
Depends
what?
on it depends on the age of the children, and also the school that the individual goes to as well.
So, okay. Let's do some math here.
But I do want to point out that PBTA is always looking at the fare media that we provide. We have not gotten any comments on, we've gotten comments on putting together, providing a student pass, and we're looking into that. I know that was one of the things that was looked at the last time that we did a fare analysis. And also whether we should have monthly passes for younger individuals.
So just based on the numbers that you gave, this individual is paying about $200 a month for her and her two children, because she explained to us that she couldn't afford to buy monthly passes, so she paid them weekly. So that's $200 a month that she could use towards anything else. And then we also had a high school student that rode with us who had to ride the bus from like the East Philmont area to Commerce, who had to pay a weekly or daily fee because he couldn't always afford to ride the bus. So sometimes he would have to catch a ride, but sometimes he would have to catch the bus, and the majority of the time he would have to catch the bus with no income coming in because he's a high school student. So
was he going to school?
Yeah, he was going to Commerce, but he had to pay.
If he's at the high school program, PBTA provides rides to the students. The students are given a pass at all the high schools, and so they can ride the PBTA for free during school hours.
Well, my nephew goes to Commerce, and we haven't gotten a pass yet, so I don't know what's the disconnect. I mean, he doesn't go to Commerce, he goes to Putnam. So I don't really know what the disconnect is or where he should go. It's his first year in high school, and he does not have a bus pass. We take him every day. So how do you getting that?
My recommendation would be that for him to talk to the school, because we do some of the transportation for the schools and the students that are given a pass. I'm not sure how the school determines that, but the students are given a pass to access the PBTA system.
Okay, so I will check into that.
Yes.
Just going back to the young mother, and maybe this high school student doesn't know either, because he definitely said he pays to ride the bus every day. So I don't know what the communication is or if that program is for every student, but we were talking to these individuals, and then there was a person on there who was a disabled gentleman, and he said his monthly income is low, and he gets the same, he's on a fixed income. And so with the little amount that he gets on disability, and after he pays his rent and everything else, and still with the discount for the bus pass, he still struggles. And he said he could also use, free transportation. And I think if we look at who's riding the PVTA bus, they all can use a little discount on free transportation in the city of Springfield. So I just wanted to mention those few examples, and I hope that Councilor Hurst can schedule another meeting that we could do another bus route and talk to some of the individuals that live in the other communities about, their particular needs. I don't have any questions per se about anything in particular, but based on the information that Councilor Hurst provided, was there anything that he was off on? Are there any problems with the information or with this program that you guys can see? And that's for Sandra or Paul.
I'm just going to thank you very much for the opportunity to speak at this committee. I know Councilor Justin Hurst requested information, and we provided information on ridership, the location of the bus stops, and provided information on all the routes that PVTA provides service to within the city of Springfield. I do want to point out that our service is based on a pulse system. So all the routes coming to Union Station and people transfer from one route to the other. So we see some issues with implementing something like the proposal that has been put together by the Councilor Justin Hurst and the other individuals in the council, the city council. If you are doing only 3 routes, when people get off those routes and get on another route, they will have to pay. If you either pay a transfer, and if you're coming back on that route, you have to pay the full fare plus a transfer to go on a route that's supposed to be for free. So those are some of the concerns, and those are the same concerns that people have in the city of Boston. And if you look at the report that the MBTA did, that people are not getting the benefit because it is more complicated. If you're transferring to another route, and if you have to pay on the other route, you might as well buy your monthly pass because it's just not going to work. We also have to look at the fact that 2 of those routes provide service to East Longmeadow and Ludlow, and a portion of Longmeadow on Dwight Street, which is a section that has a lot of medical facilities, and they also park in East Longmeadow. So those are locations that the decision has to be made. If people are getting on that bus, if you're getting on those communities, we will have to charge them to get on the bus. It makes it very difficult for the operator to keep track of who he's supposed to be charging to. So it's an operational challenge for us to try to make sure that people understand, yes, you're going to that route, but you're coming from another route, and you have to pay for that. So that's one of the things that we see. We also are concerned with some of the behavioral concerns that we have seen in the past when fares or services for free. So we are also wanting to make sure that the drivers are protected and are taken into consideration in their comments regarding going fare free. And I would like to say that PVTA's position is that it's not good to have something, or it's not in the best interest of the passengers to have something that's fare free that is not sustainable. If you're going to take it away later on, it's going to be a big issue, and it's going to be all on the fault of the drivers that are going to get all the challenges from the passengers saying, why are you doing this to us? PVTA supports a discounted pass program. I think that's the best way to go, so that you purchase passes and give them to individuals, which is how we work on different programs. We have a workforce development program, and so those individuals are given passes through this program, and then they arrive for free. We also have the fare free on Tuesday for the passengers, for the seniors. So I think it's something that it's in the best interest of everybody. You are provide a more equitable solution, because you're going to have different individuals in Springfield that are not serviced by those routes and whose routes are not going to be free. And so that's going to be an issue that needs to be taken into consideration. A discounted pass or something to be provided, low income pass, that's something that we can look at as well. And the other thing that we need to take into consideration is that we have a paratransit system And a paratransit system is the ADA service that is mandated by law. It's supposed to be complementary to the bus system. So if a route is for free, then that means that the paratransit system is for free. And the issue with that is that and those costs are not included in the presentation that we're given. That service is obviously more expensive. You pay $3.50 to ride, $3 to ride on that, depending on the distance that you're going. And we can have a capacity issue if all those trips are going to be free for individuals that are disabled. And so that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. And if you look at the report that the MBTA did on the pilot program that's done in Boston, the capacity on the ride, which is what they call the paratransit system, has come into issue where you are not allowed to deny service. And where people are taking those rides for free, then that becomes a problem. So those are some of the things that we are concerned with. Our drivers are very concerned about having this, as they feel that, as the passengers have indicated to us in the past, that they rather have improved service, more evening service, weekend service, and definitely more frequent service on Sunday than fare-free service. So that's where we stand on that.
This communication with the drivers and with the residents that said they want more service on Sundays and
we do surveys every 2 years and every 3 years, and every opportunity that we get, we do public outreaches. We do it at Union stations. We also ride the routes and ask passengers what they feel they need the most. And one of the things that they do is more frequent service, more express service, more evening service, and definitely more service on Sunday. Our service is very limited on the routes that we provide service on Sunday and the time frame that we do so.
is there any way you can share those survey results? Because did you, in the survey, did it say, would you prefer free transportation, or would you prefer discounted, more evening service, more services on the weekend? I mean, were those questions specific?
I think in one of them, we did ask whether they had a preference, and individuals have indicated to us that they prefer to have more service, more frequent service, and a more robust system.
If I could interject, I know when we did the service cuts and the fare increase in 2018, comments almost across the board. There were a few people who were concerned about the increase in fares, but by and large, passengers did not want to see a fare increase. They did not want to see a fare decrease or a fare stabilization. They didn't want cuts. They were okay paying a little bit more for the fare. And that tends to come across in every survey that we do. We don't often ask directly, and I think we could, pretty quickly put together a survey that offers some choices, as you propose, whether we could, reduce fares or improve service. And I suspect, just based on all of our past work, we would see that riders would absolutely prefer to increase service and not reduce.
And I don't think it should be an either or. I don't think if you
well, the problem is that it is an either or, because unless you're gonna get money from someplace else that's dedicated to subsidizing fares.
We're offering 3.7 million.
But only for 2 years, so that does create a challenge. And still, if we could take that 3.7 million and put it into improving service, that would have a huge impact for those riders. It would increase employment opportunities. It would increase their ability to get back and forth to childcare. A lot of our routes end, around between 7 and 9 at night. So it really kind of I'm sorry.
If I can interject, the goal, sir, is to pilot this with an opportunity to make it a sustainable program. It's not something that we want to see go away. In addition, you're not going to lose the fare because we are going to use funding to cover the fare and then try to see what other funding sources that we can come up with in 2 years as a pilot program. And so I don't want the misnomer to be out there that, oh, we're giving free service, but there's no funding source that's going to cover the fares that you were originally getting.
Well, for the 2 years, definitely. But I think the challenge is, how do we fund this in the future? And it's still a trade-off between subsidizing service or subsidizing fares. And no matter what, I mean, you know, we're rather flush with money now between ARPA funds and CARES funds, but that's going to change in 2 or 3 years. And then we're probably right back, you know, we've seen this unfortunately every time we cycle through where there's some increases in budgets, and then, you know, we get level funded for sometimes 3, 5, 7 years. And
Well,
we're level funded.
I don't want the perception to be we're asking for free service without giving a subsidy funding. Because
Yeah, no, we're not saying that.
Please, let me finish. That's exactly what you said. You said, do you want free fare or do you want better service?
Well,
And
no, because you could take that 3.4 and put it into service.
Excuse me, sir. In your whole comment, you did not say that we're going to take the money that you're offering through ARPA funds to subsidize the program. It was just like either free service or, so we got to tell the whole picture when we're speaking to the topic. And before you continue, I'm going to let Councilor Hurst and Councilor Perez ask the questions that they have. So Councilor Hurst, you have the floor. Thank you.
Councilor oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Go ahead, Councilor. Go ahead, Councilor.
Well,
Go ahead.
I just want to reintegrate that I was part of the meeting of PVTA back in 2018, and it was the same issue. Actually, it was at the Y. And the reason that the public did not want the free ride, it was because it was informed that if that was to happen, there were going to be some buses that are going to be cut off. There was not going to be some buses on Sunday. So people felt it kind of threatening with that presentation. That's why I'm here today at the meeting, because I was part of that meeting with Women on the Back Garden, and people was kind of saying, well, if we do free, we have to cut off Sundays, specifically the bus that goes through Plainfield. We have to cut off some buses. And then people said, well, you know, they risking to not have transportation because if they go for free. The other statement that I am very puzzled is that I heard behavioral issues that are counted if the buses are for free. I'm from the city of New York City. And you know what? Most of the 100 of times the buses are completely, or the train fill up with people. What is the difference? And I want someone to answer that question, because what behavioral will come if the buses are for free, since the bus drivers are so concerned? I want to hear what are the behavioral, and if there's any pilot program that has proven that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor. Does anyone want to answer that
So
question?
if I could just discuss the behavioral issues, and of course we did go fare free, or we ceased fare collection during the early days of COVID. And we haven't done a formal study of it, but there are clear increases in behavioral issues. There's just a different type of rider that's going to access sometimes, not entirely by any means. And there are also studies, and I'll dig those out and forward them to you, that they do indicate that one of the concerns that riders have when they go fare free in pilots is that there are increases in behavioral issues. Sometimes it's for criminal activity, although that's low on the scale, but oftentimes there's an increase in the number of people who are experiencing homelessness, who ride the routes, that create at least a perception issue for other riders. We did have to institute some new policies during the fare free period, because we did have issues with vagrancy. We did have issues with increasing drug use on the vehicles. And those are all things that we absolutely experienced. Because, you know, of course, it was also colder. COVID may have changed some of that in the way that those folks interacted, but we clearly did in the early days see some increase in behavioral issues on the vehicles.
And I just want to point out, it's not it's not the individuals, it's the people that are usual riders that are made uncomfortable by having that behavior on the bus. People that might just go, they don't have the money, but they will save the money to go get some drugs and They don't wait until they get off the bus and they do some activities on the bus that are not allowed and the driver cannot see them, but the passenger do. And then they don't want to ride the bus. The individuals or regular passengers are saying, we're not riding the bus because that's happening on that route and we don't want to ride that route unless you take care of that problem. And that's what one of the individual circumstances that Paul is referring to. There's also some, as we see people waiting at intersections, asking for money, then there will be people on the buses doing that as well. And we've seen that, and that happened during the pandemic as well. And it's not the individuals, it's the fact that you cannot prevent them from riding, but it's the passengers that are complaining to us that that is not the behavior that they want on the buses, and that they're not going to ride the buses if that continues. So as Paul mentioned, we had to take some measures to address that, but it did not make the problem go away. And there were a lot of drivers that were very concerned for their safety when they were riding when they were driving some of those buses.
Thank you. Councilor Hurst.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess one of my frustrations with where we're at now is that, it seems as though folks are coming up with every reason not to do this, as opposed to, coming up with solutions to some of the concerns that you might have. And I think even when you look at all of the concerns that you all have reiterated, the question that we also have to ask ourselves is, does it outweigh the benefit to the many individuals who are going to rely on this free transportation, especially during this critical time? A lot of the things that I heard ought to be issues that can be resolved. But even more importantly, if they can't be resolved, what this pilot will do is allow us to study them. And, a lot of what I heard was speculation or anecdotal data that
discriminatory.
Or data that, is not, certainly not done through a sophisticated study that this particular pilot would allow us to do. Now, maybe we need to include some money from a marketing standpoint for these particular bus routes for PVTA. Maybe that makes sense, just to let folks know that these are only the 3 routes that we are piloting. Maybe we need to pay for the Long Meadow in East Long Meadow, those 2 particular stops, primarily because Springfield residents are benefiting. Then your drivers don't have to say, you can get on for free, you can't get on for free, right? Which is why, I presented the numbers in a manner that included those, those particular ridership fees. So if we covered those costs, being that Springfield riders probably benefit from going to the Stop and Shops of the world and the Big Ys of the world, and we want to encourage that, then you all won't have those issues. The Parrot Transit fee, I'd love to get those numbers as soon as possible, Sandra, so that we can embed those in the proposal. In terms of this being sustainable, I hope that is what we would want to work towards. Now, we can't dictate what the mayor is interested in doing. That is up to the mayor. And to be honest with you, it's also up to the mayor to fund it. And so if the mayor thinks anything like you all, the likelihood is high that he won't fund it, but it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. For me, it makes sense. And for me, based off of what you all are saying, if we can get to the point where we have free transportation for all of our routes, now the only thing that we would have to look at is, how do we make service better? And, that's something that, we ought to be studying as well through this pilot. Maybe you don't get an increase of riders. I've looked at some studies where that doesn't occur either. But I would argue that Springfield is different than Boston, and doing a study doesn't hurt. why not get the data and then let's see where we go from there, and and see how this program is benefiting the residents of Springfield. The idea that folks are so adamantly opposed to it for reasons that ought to be able to be resolved for the most part doesn't make sense to me. And I guess the question that I would ask, and the question that I have for you all is that I know, Sandra, you said you were more supportive of the House Bill H3526. Is that accurate?
The bill didn't go through, but we support more of a discounted pass program, instituted discounted pass program, because it will benefit more people, not just the people on those 3 routes. And that's where my issue comes in. My issue is more of an equity issue, because if you're saying only the individuals that are within, people usually just walk 3/4 of a mile on either side of a fixed route to ride that bus. And you have other individuals within the city of Springfield that are going to say, why isn't my route free? And so what I'm saying is, if you create a pass and use those funds to create a pass for low-income people, then it will be more individuals that will take advantage of it, and there will be more routes that will get the benefit, not just those 3 routes and the residents of that area. And that's basically our position here at PVTA, that we can do more by doing the passes to benefit more individuals of the city. And also, I want to point out that when you say the other systems, like you're talking about Lawrence, it's the entire system of Lawrence. The Merrimack Valley is the entire system, not just the routes in Lawrence that are free. It's the entire system. And it's the same for Worcester. It's not the routes on Worcester, it's the routes in the entire WRTA system. So we're only talking about 3 routes in the entire PVTA system out of the 47 routes. And so that's my issue. There is not just individuals in those, and the State Street portion on the Bay and Berkshire, and on the, I guess you could call it Dwight section of G2. There are other individuals within the city. And so that is why my position is that a discounted fare pass program or a free pass program to the residents will go a long way, not just for this.
And so, one, I'd love to see that proposal as it relates to Springfield. I'd love to see what you would turn this $3.4 million into a discounted fare as it relates to Springfield, and how you would implement it. And if you could get that to me within the next, couple weeks before we move forward on this, I would love to see it. Show me, hold on. Show me how it is going to benefit Springfield, not necessarily the entire PVTA, because what you're proposing to me is an all or nothing system. And that would mean we would end up with nothing unless we funded every single route throughout the PVTA and throughout Springfield. The purpose of this is a pilot with the hope that we would be able to fund the entire transportation system in the city of Springfield. I'm not talking about Chicopee, I'm not talking about Ludlow, I'm talking about Springfield. And so if you're gonna present something to me, I'd like to see how would you do it for every single route in the city of Springfield in terms of reducing the amount that folks have to pay using a similar amount of money in Springfield. I'd imagine you're still gonna have to deal with a lot of the same issues that you pointed out here, but show it to me. So that, and if you think it'll be easier and have more of a benefit, I'd love to see it, and maybe we can consider it. But barring you presenting nothing, what we're doing is presenting something, and you're in turn shooting it down. So I need you all to give me something that can work. Otherwise, we're just going to move forward with the proposal as best we can, considering what it is that you all have said to us today. And, hopefully you all will take it into consideration. And I guess the other thing that I just wanted to say about the House bill, I didn't see the PVTA in that House bill. Why not?
It was put together by the RTA caucus in the legislature. So we have
So
a.
why wasn't the PBTA included?
What do you mean the PBTA included?
Why in the bill that
It's supposed to include all the regional transit authorities. We lobby all together because we are funded all in a lump amount of money. So we have to all do it together.
So when I look at the Massachusetts Bay Transit Authority,
Yeah,
in this House bill, that's the entire, that's everybody. That's
It's all the
everybody,
regional
correct?
transit authorities, correct.
Yeah.
MBTA is not us. MBTA is separate. It's the RTA. It's not the MBTA.
The regional transit authorities.
So I didn't see the regional transit authority.
The
I didn't see the regional
authority.
transit in this bill. Did I miss something?
The Regional Transit Authority caucus was the one that put that in. Representative Blaze, oh my God, I forget their names. But I lost my train of thought here for a second. You will have to give me the criteria for this discount to pass. Are we talking about low income, and is it based on the low income fair means program? And it's so the individuals will need to come to PBTA for us to identify them to give them the pass. And then
Why don't you
one of the criteria obviously will be to be a resident of the city of Springfield. They'll have to prove that they're residents of the city of Springfield. And that's what I'm getting at.
The objective is to benefit the residents. So why don't you give me the best program that you can come up with to benefit the residents that makes sense with your policy? Give me the best program that you have that will cause your riders the least amount of of heartache and hardship. I'd like to see that program and what it looks like from your perspective, and maybe we can mesh the two. Because the idea that we do nothing is, I'm sure, not acceptable for all of our counselors. So maybe you come up with something better that we can use this money for that is more sustainable. I just would like to see it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I just have two quick comments. When we talked about the free transportation, and we talked about different individuals riding the transportation that may cause problems or havoc, it is subjective, and it also, but it gives, like Councilor Hirsch said, gives an opportunity for different services to meet people where they're at. And so if you have these sort of things happening, there's an opportunity to partner with different organizations like Tapestry and Gadara and other organizations to have someone on the PVTA bus that can maybe give out information to even some folks in the homeless population that don't know where to go. Maybe they're visiting the city of Springfield, may not even be residents. It may give them an opportunity to ride the PVTA also and help these folks. Like, we have people in the city of Springfield that needs real help. And then if there are individuals on the bus that say they're not going to ride anymore, I'm willing to bet that they will, because the alternative is much more expensive. What are they going to do? Uber every day? Take a cab? Walk? Like, it's much more expensive. So I'm willing to bet that they're still going to get on that bus. If that's the way that they get to work and they can't afford anything else because they can barely afford to ride the bus right now, I'm pretty sure they're going to get on the bus. And to Councilor Perez's point, even in a full transit system that has things happening on subway stations and other transportation methods in New York, which is really, really more congested than the city of Springfield, they seem to make it work. And so I too have a problem with the coming up with the reasons why we can't do it. Like, what can we do? And then when we talk about equity and we talk about low income riders, now we got to look at it from an equity standpoint as well, because you have individuals that's just over the poverty line by the federal guidelines. You have individuals just over that poverty level that still needs to ride the bus because they can't afford any other means of transportation, yet they won't qualify for the discount that folks that fall under the poverty guidelines will qualify for. And so when we talk about equity, how are we going to resolve that? At least if it was free, they could still get on for free. But when you look at poverty guidelines, and I've been there, and so no one can tell me different about it. I've been just over the poverty line, but I'm still struggling to take care of my children. I still need help with daycare. It's the cliff effect. And I don't know if we all know, but I know about the cliff effect. So when you just over that poverty guideline, but your heat is going through the roof or inflation is happening, you still need that help. But you can't because you're over the low income thresholds based on those guidelines. So when we talk about equity, we need to think about those individuals as well. And so I don't think that's an equitable solution when you're saying, oh, but if you've given a discount to individuals that live in the city of Springfield, period, I can understand. But you still might get that population of people that you guys don't want to ride the bus. And I think if you have drug issues and homelessness, I think that those are, public health issues, but they still deserve to use free transportation, even though they're dealing with whatever they're dealing with in life, because we don't know individual circumstances. And so when we talk about equity, we need to also think about that.
I think it's important to say, it's not that we don't want them to ride the bus, by no means. They ride the bus now. The challenge is that when it was fare free, there was an increase of folks with problem behaviors. We have a significant homeless population now that rides the bus. We work with programs to subsidize fares for the homeless population. We are not looking to say that the homeless shouldn't ride. We're working on some pilot programs to help address just some of the things you said, that we're hoping to work with Tapestry and other community resource organizations so we can meet riders who have issues where we are. My background before PPTA was 17 years in human services, and I worked with the Department of Transitional Assistance to place moms on welfare and dads on welfare. So I absolutely understand the cliff effect. I was there myself. I ended up on welfare for a point in time with 4 little boys as a single parent. I understand the cliff effect in the same way you do, Councilor Whitfield. So I'm just concerned that I want to make sure that we create a situation that actually helps and doesn't exacerbate problems. So I don't think that we're sitting in a situation where we're saying that we don't want to help low-income riders. Not entire, but 80% of our ridership is low income. So we understand that there's a huge need out here, and we are more than happy to find a way to help. I don't know how this became confrontational. We just don't think that subsidizing.
Going by what you said. I was going by the examples that you used. You said we get more homeless population, we get more.
But those are real issues too.
I know that cause a problem. So I was going based on what you said. And Judith had her hand up. I think you're trying to raise your hand, but you're using the clap button. Paul, it's not confrontational, but we want to offer something that benefits the city of Springfield. And when we looked at the transportation, we thought that this was a good solution to benefit the city of Springfield. But right now it feels like we're getting a lot of pushback, and I am a solution-based person as well. And so I appreciate giving passes to low income or subsidized passes if it's going to be equitable, because that's also what Sandra wants. She wants an equitable solution.
Right.
And when we look at low income, if it's based on income, if we look at that, that is not going to be a good solution. Maybe subsidizing for the whole city of Springfield could be a good solution.
Well, I think that was our question. It wasn't necessarily low income. What's your threshold?
Okay. Judith,
What do you think you want?
Because we got like 3 minutes and then Councilor.
Okay, I'll be real quick. First, I want a disclaimer. I don't know, I'm on here as a resident of the city.
Oh, okay.
I'm not on here representing the mayor's office. I really don't know. I saw that this meeting was coming up, and I am from Boston, and I have family in Boston, and I have a PowerPoint I want to share with you guys. I think the Boston program does have its problems, but I have siblings who ride the T. from Mattapan to Ruggles, you know, and they're in the lower poverty areas of Boston. My mother lives in Mattapan. So it has helped them. And no, you can't, it doesn't pay for transfers. It just will get you to someplace like Nubian Square or Ruggles Station. So you could take a train into the city, and you can take a train because Boston has that larger transportation availability. I want to put in the chat this PowerPoint, which is the survey of Route 28. It's only that particular route, even though the pilot program in Boston is 23, 28, and another bus line. I can't think of it right now. But this route goes from Mattapan to Ruggles Street Station. And I wanted to share this with you, and you can look at it at your leisure, because I hear what everyone's saying. Even my sister has shared with me that, yes, you know, there's more people riding the T, and there's more people, you know, who have problems or mental illness or whatever. But look at the survey and just dissect that and take it from there. Maybe we can continue this conversation. Thank you.
I'd love to continue the conversation. I love what you brought to the table because it's real examples. And when I think about surveys and when I bring up surveys, we can always share them. So I would love to see the surveys that the PVTA had with the population, and they do not want free fare, because I can't imagine that. I can't imagine it personally, because when we sat on the bus, they all clapped when we said, how would you like it? So I don't know. I would love to see those surveys. Councilor Hurst, and then I'll give the last word to Councilor Perez, because I actually do have 10 o'clock that I'm gonna be 5 minutes late.
I guess I would love to see what it is that the PVTA, after this particular meeting, it sounds like you probably understand our concerns of what we'd like to achieve, what it is that you would be able to propose for all of the residents of Springfield. And maybe it's not just 3.4 million, right? What would you be able to propose for a 2-year pilot? And if you could send that to us within the next couple of weeks, if that is doable, maybe we can mesh that with what it is that we have now. And you all would be able to take into consideration some of the concerns that you have when you give us what it is that you might recommend. So, I mean, I look forward to it. I don't think it's confrontational at all. If it was I mean, we could just as easily pass the resolution and, you know, leave it at that. But I think, you know, we're trying to reach some sort of resolution in terms of how this can be effective for the residents of Springfield at the end of the day, and how we can benefit them with ARPA funding. We have additional ARPA funding that we want to use because we know it would be a benefit. And we know these people have suffered the most from COVID, who likely ride the bus and who rode the bus during COVID because they were individuals that had to work to survive. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for the meeting.
Thank you. Councilor Perez.
Yes, I just want to have the link sent to me, and probably to all other city council, that it was presented about the study in Boston. And just for a statement, I did look at the petition, and there was no one in the petition from this side. I think the petition for the low fare was more for the area of Boston. And that is another conversation to be continued. Thank you.
Petition, Councilor Perez, which petition?
The 3526. That it was presented by Adrian Mataro. Okay, so I think that's a conversation we need to have as well. Thank you.
Can I?
Yes, I will. We got 3 minutes, Sandra, and you can take them.
Thank you so much. Like I said, thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to provide our point of view. We will be happy to put something together. And so I'll be emailing you, Justin, Councilor Justin Hurst, just to get some ideas on some of the parameters that we're thinking. And so just make sure that we're on the right path for that. I also just wanted to let you know that the budget for this year, which level funded the regional transit authorities. Also had $2.5 million for a pilot for all of the 15 RTAs. So what the 15 RTAs decided to do, instead of each competing for the money, and as you know, $2.5 million, it's not a lot when it comes to the 15 of us. But what we decided to do as a group, it's called the Massachusetts Association of Regional Transit Authorities, we submitted one proposal asking Mass DOT to use that money to allow us, each of the 15 RTAs, to provide fare-free service starting with the start of the holiday season, the shopping season, to allow people to be able to save some money and use it for shopping. So it's an economic development and also an opportunity for everyone. So this includes all of the individuals in this, all of the routes in our system, and it includes the paratransit service as well. So from I think it's Black Friday until we run out of money, which we hope is after the holiday, after the 25th, maybe it will go to December 31st. So we submitted an application, all the 15 RTAs, and we're waiting to hear from Mass DOT whether that was approved or not. So it is our expectation that we're calling it tri-transit. So for everybody to tri-transit during the shopping season, or when most people have temporary employment because of the needs at the stores and everything like that. So I just wanted to let you know that that was something that the 15 RTAs submitted, just to try it out, to see how it works and what lessons we can learn from that as well. So we're hoping to hear from them sometime next week when they're supposed to announce whether the award was given or not. And then we will be notifying all of our board members and everything, if that happened or not. Okay?
Okay.
That will be for the entire system, for like maybe 4 or 5 weeks, maybe 4 weeks.
Okay, that sounds like a great program. And we'll see how it goes.
And I just also want to reiterate that we work with all the different agencies, the Department of Transitional Assistance and homeless shelters. We donate a lot of passes to them because we know that people are trying to get to employment or housing. And so we do have programs for that. And we have a lot of different agencies that we work with that we give them discounted passes when they buy in bulk. Okay?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Sounds good.
We're going to
Thank you,
conclude
Madam Chair.
the information to Councilor Hurst that he requested, please, on how a subsidy program will work, how much it will cost, that information. We're gonna have to have an additional meeting.
Sure.
Before we pass the resolution. Councilor Perez, thank you for joining us. Judith, thank you for joining us. The information you provided was so invaluable. Thank you, Paul and Sandra. We definitely taking your concerns into consideration because we don't want more problems, but we do want to help those that need additional help. So thank you for talking about how you partner with some of the organizations in the community, because that is something I didn't know. So thank you all for your time.
Thank
And
you.